In the category of phrases most likely to inspire the American people to say, yeah, right, sure, whatever, the nominees are, number 1, you may already be a winner. Number 2, fair and balanced. And number 3, Middle East peace process. All phrases that we hear all the time. All things we don't believe will ever come to anything remotely like what they literally promise. But here's something that might puncture the understandable cynicism here. Once upon a time, every Arab country in the world was in a state of war with Israel. And it wasn't just theoretical. The Arab-Israeli War, the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War, war. I mean, Israel is not exactly at peace now, but in the first 30 years of its existence as a country, Israel fought full-on army-to-army hot wars with countries like Egypt and Syria and Jordan over and over and over again. And then something remarkable happened. The leader of an Arab country, for the first time ever, took a trip to Israel and spoke at the Israeli parliament. And after a whole lot of negotiating and cajoling and according, much of it by Jimmy Carter, an Arab country signed a peace treaty with Israel. Every other Arab country in the world had been in a state of war with Israel at that point for 30 years. And one leader, Egypt's Anwar Sadat, said he would sign a treaty, he would make peace. It took another 15 years until even one more Arab country would do that. That was Jordan in 1994. The original Egypt-Israel peace deal is 30 years old today, and it is still in effect. So yeah, Americans are cynical about this idea that there could ever be peace in the Middle East. Even the phrase, Middle East peace, makes us glaze over. But when you get specific, when you think about how what happened 30 years ago today is so unlikely, so incredible when you think about it, all the more so since that deal has held up for 30 years, even while everything else that's happened in the Middle East has happened, it's got to kind of upset your sense of what's possible, right? Of what might conceivably actually happen in our lifetimes. Dr. Jihan Sadat is the widow of Anwar Sadat, the late president of Egypt, who was assassinated by religious extremists in 1981. Mrs. Sadat has just written a new book called My Hope for Peace. I spoke with her earlier here in our studios. Mrs. Sadat, thank you so much for joining us. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Americans do not hold out a lot of hope that there could ever be normal relations among the countries in the Middle East, not in our lifetimes. But you think there's reason to hope?
Yes, I am very optimistic, and I believe, because when you think when Sadat went to Israel, which is 30 years and more now, nobody could believe. Nobody believed him. Nobody, not in our country, all over the world, they couldn't believe that he is going to Israel and going to make peace, and he did. But he was such a very courageous leader who believed in peace, who put the people above himself, who thought of the new generation to come and to be in a peaceful atmosphere. And he wanted to put an end to the bloodshed. He wanted to save his sons and the Israeli sons also. He was ahead of his time, believe me.
Do you see parallels in the decision-making process that he had at that time and the debates that happen now about whether or not countries should engage with people who they see as their enemies? We've had a big fight over that in American politics about whether or not Barack Obama should engage in diplomacy with countries like Iran. Do you see parallels?
I think he can do. I think President Obama can do a lot. Because when you see President Carter did help in the peace process between Egypt and Israel, President Obama could do something also. I believe if he is sincere for making peace in the Middle East, he can do it.
In addition to the direct plight of the Palestinian people, the Palestinian cause is also a rallying point for all sorts of different Middle Eastern, Arab, and Muslim politics. It's also a rallying point for religious extremists in the Muslim world. One of the men incarcerated in conjunction with the assassination of your husband was Ayman al-Zawahiri, who's the number 2 man in al-Qaeda. What is the future of religious extremism in Egypt? What is the future of religious extremism with relationship to the Middle East peace process?
Believe me, if there will be peace between Palestinians and the Israelis, all these extremists will not have any excuse to talk about. They are using this. They are using the conflict between the Palestinians